Welcome back to the deep dive discussion of dystopian novel Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Today we discuss Chapter 13.
And this is a big one.
Oh yeah, we're moving into a truly pivotal moment now, one you've likely been anticipating if you're following John and Lenina's story.
Definitely.
This chapter isn't just a scene, it's a head-on collision between their two wildly incompatible worlds.
Mm-hmm.
And the consequences are anything but civilized.
Exactly. Up to this point, we've seen their mutual fascination, sure, but also the enormous gulf between them. You know?
Absolutely.
Lenina, she's conditioned for these casual physical relationships, and suddenly she finds herself fixated on one person. That's totally disruptive for her.
Completely throws her off.
And John, meanwhile, he's trying to reconcile the real Lenina with his idealized Shakespearean vision of her.
Right, the image he's built up.
While also being kind of repulsed by the very world state behaviors he also finds alluring. It's complicated.
Right.
This chapter is where those tensions just snap.
So our source material is, of course, Chapter 13 of Brave New World.
Mm-hmm.
And our mission today is not just to, recount what happens in this explosive encounter, but to really try and understand why it happens.
Yeah, the dynamics behind it.
What specific actions and dialogue reveal about these deep-seated differences between the reservation and the world state?
And what does this confrontation tell us about the power of conditioning, of culture?
Okay, let's dive in then.
Right. So the chapter opens with Lenina, and she's in a state of distress. You find her in the embryo store. Visibly weary, pale, there's this sadness around her mouth.
Symptoms that are just completely foreign to your typical world state citizen.
Utterly. And who should walk in but Henry Foster?
Of course. Perfect timing.
And his reaction just perfectly illustrates the world state's inability to comprehend genuine emotional pain. He sees her symptoms and offers the only solutions he knows.
Is she ill? Does she need a doctor?
Exactly. He even recites one of those hypnopedic proverbs. A doctor a day keeps the gym jams away.
So programmed.
Right. He just can't process that this isn't a simple physical ailment or, a lack of soma. His mind immediately goes to the standard fixes pregnancy substitute, VPS treatment.
The idea that a single person, an emotional connection, could cause this kind of disruption is just outside his reality.
Totally. It shows you how successfully the world state has basically eradicated the vocabulary, the experience of deep personal suffering tied to attachment.
And Lenny's focus is entirely internal, isn't it? It's all John.
Completely. Her distraction is so profound, the book tells us, she makes a critical error.
Oh, right. The injection.
Yes. Yeah. Missing a sleeping sickness injection on an embryo. And there's that chilling little note that, 22 years later,
some alpha-minus administrator dies because of it. Wow.
It's not just plot detail. It's Huxley showing you, really viscerally, that unregulated human emotion isn't just inconvenient, it's actually dangerous to the world state's efficiency and stability.
Yeah, it throws a wrench in the works.
Which brings us nicely to the changing room scene with Fanny.
Fanny. The voice of reason. World state reason, anyway.
Exactly. Fanny is the voice of pure world state pragmatism when it comes to relationships. She just cannot fathom Lenina's distress over one man.
But he's the one I want, Lenina says. It sounds almost childish in that context.
And Fanny's response is the perfect encapsulation of their conditioning. As though there weren't millions of other men. How can you know till you've tried?
It's all about quantity and sampling.
Fanny's advice is so clinical. Don't think of him. Take soma. Try other men.
And then the clincher.
And then reflecting that kind of aggressive world state approach to pleasure and consumption, the ultimate directive, just go and take him, whether he wants it or no.
Wow. Just take him.
It's not romance. It's like an instruction manual for getting what you want. The source even notes it's framed almost like a lecture, like from the YWFA.
It just underscores how deeply ingrained that idea of multiple consequence-free partners really is. And Lenina's struggling, Her counter-arguments like, he's terribly queer or I'd be scared, they feel almost pathetic against Fanny's confident, logical world state pronouncements.
It really highlights how ill-equipped Lenina is to handle something this complex, this emotionally demanding, genuine focused desire for someone like John, who's outside the norm.
She knows something's different, and it kind of terrifies her within her safe, predictable world.
Yeah, definitely. Meanwhile, back at John's apartment, he's pacing, impatiently waiting, anticipating Helmholtz's arrival.
He needs to talk about Lenina.
Desperately. He's consumed by his own, very complicated feelings.
And then the doorbell rings. He shouts, thinking it's Helmholtz.
But when the door opens, it's Lenina.
Dun, 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 dun.
She's there in her white acetate satin sailor suit and cap, looking precisely like that idealized figure he's been worshipping from afar.
And his reaction isn't exactly joy, is it?
No, it's shock. Oh, he says, as though someone had struck him a heavy blow. What does that immediately tell you?
That the reality is maybe overwhelming, even scary for him.
I think so. It forces this confrontation between his idealized image and the complicated reality of her. She's a symbol of the world he both loves and hates.
And she took Soma before coming, right?
Oh, crucially, 0.5 gram. That's key. It explains her confidence, her ability to even be there, her lack of the fear or embarrassment John's presence might otherwise provoke.
She's literally drugged herself to face this emotional moment.
Pretty much. Then there's that awkward silence.
Until Lenina, direct as her conditioning allows, asks, "You don't seem very glad to see me, John."
Such a simple question from her perspective, right? I'm here. Are you pleased?
But his response is anything but simple.
Exactly. It's an explosion of his cultural response. He immediately falls to his knees, kisses her hand.
And launches into this flood of Shakespearean adoration.
Admired Lenina. So perfect and so peerless are created of every creature's best. For him, this is the language of profound respect, of idealized love. It's the only language he has for this kind of feeling.
But then he scrambles up and starts talking about needing to do something first.
Yeah, to prove his worthiness. Referencing Malpais's customs bringing a mountain lion skin, a wolf skin.
Or even offering to sweep the floor.
And Lenina is just utterly lost. There aren't any lions. We've got vacuum cleaners here. It isn't necessary. What's happening there?
It's that total clash, isn't it? Symbolic action versus world state efficiency.
Spot on. John's world values these deeds that show courage or sacrifice or humble service as like prerequisites for love and marriage.
Whereas Lenina's world has engineered away the need for any of that. Actions are only valuable if they're practical, efficient.
Right. The concept of doing something difficult for the sake of proving devotion is just alien to her. It's inefficient, pointless.
She's clearly getting more and more frustrated by his, quote, queerness.
Definitely.
Yeah.
He finally just blurts it out, "How much I love you, Lenina."
And for a second, that word, the intensity of it, it seems to pierce through her conditioning.
Yes. The source describes the blood rushing to her cheeks. She asks, startled, "Do you mean it, John?" She recognizes the feeling behind the word, maybe an echo of something buried deep.
But she immediately interprets it through her own world state lens.
Instantly. Love, for her, means attraction, desire, leading directly to the physical act.
And that's where John immediately trips her up again, talking about Malpais's marriage.
We're always.
And her reaction, "What a horrible idea."
Yes. This is a core taboo of the world state laid bare. Permanence in relationships. It's seen as disgusting, unnatural, a source of messy emotions and instability.
Her society is built on mandatory promiscuity, right?
Yeah.
Immediate satisfaction, multiple partners.
Exactly. So the idea of being tied to one person for always is genuinely horrifying to her.
He tries again, using more Shakespeare,
Right.
talking about the virgin knot, sanctimonious ceremonies.
But to Lenina, it's just nonsense. Vacuum cleaners, knots, driving her crazy. She grabs his wrist in exasperation.
Demanding, basically, do you like me or not? Get to the point.
And when he repeats he loves her, her frustration just boils over at his, his indirectness, his inability to get to the point she understands.
And this is the pivot, the real turning point.
It really is. In Lenina's mind, he said, "I love you." In her experience, that means one thing.
Permission for intimacy.
Total permission. She embraces him, and her thought even reflects her conditioning. 3 weeks in a helicopter, a popular Feely title. She expects immediate physical reciprocation. That's the script.
But for John, oh boy, conditioned in this world of moral codes, shame, the strict separation of idealized love from physical desire, her embrace isn't the culmination.
It's a shocking, horrifying descent into sin. Horror, 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 he quotes internally. He's railing against lust, trying desperately to pull away.
But Lenina persists.
Yeah.
She's not asking for consent in his sense. She's initiating what is, for her, a standard interaction after that declaration.
Exactly. So she begins to undress. Unbuckling, ripping, stepping out of her clothes, following her cultural script.
And as she does, John's reaction just escalates from internal horror to outward frenzy.
He's quoting more Shakespeare, passages just dripping with disgust for female sexuality, for lust. To the girdle do the gods inherit, beneath is all the fiends.
He's backing away, flapping his hands. His idealized image of her is just shattering.
Replaced by this figure of temptation and sin that he was taught to fear. It's visceral for him.
And she's still operating on her script,
Yeah.
using those awful world state suggestive rhymes.
Hug me till you drug me, honey. Kiss me till I'm in a coma. She genuinely doesn't understand his revulsion, his terror. She thinks this is seduction.
And that's when it just breaks into violence.
The communication gap is too wide. The cultural clash is too extreme. He grabs her wrists, tears her away, his face distorted with rage.
She's bewildered, asking, but what is it, John? She still doesn't get it.
He shakes her, screaming the language of his upbringing, the language of moral judgment, of shame, whore, impudent strumpet.
Words that probably have almost no meaning to her except as sounds of rage.
Pretty much. And Lenina, completely overwhelmed by this raw, unregulated emotion and violence she has absolutely no framework for, she just falls back on her ingrained world state coping mechanism.
Suggesting Soma.
A grandma is bad, she whispers, terrified. It's the only solution she knows for distress.
He shoves her hard. She falls. He stands over her, threatening. Violence. Real violence.
She scrambles into the bathroom, locks the door. You even hear the sound of his slap as she goes. It's brutal.
Inside the bathroom, Lenina looks at the mark on her hand. A physical reminder of an interaction completely outside her experience.
While John, outside, is pacing and ranting, still quoting Shakespeare, trying to purge this perceived contamination with words about lechery, about soiled horses.
It's quite a scene. Lenina then cautiously asks for her clothes through the ventilator.
He pushes them through. She's trapped, unsure what to do. The safe, predictable world she knew has just been shattered by this raw, violent emotion.
And then the interruption.
Suddenly the telephone rings, breaks the tension. It's a call for John.
He confirms who he is, using that slightly archaic phrase, "If I do not usurp myself, I am."
He learns someone is ill, moved to 3 Park Lane, and you hear his immediate concern. He recognizes the significance. He decides he must go immediately.
He hurries out, slams the door, leaving Lenina alone in the apartment.
She cautiously emerges from the bathroom, tiptoes through the now silent apartment, and only feels truly safe once she's in the lift, physically removing herself from the scene of this devastating cultural collision.
Wow. Okay. So what does this violent encounter ultimately tell us? It's more than just a bad date, clearly.
Oh, much more. It's the absolute demonstration that their societies have created value systems that aren't just different, they are fundamentally incompatible.
John's actions are driven by this moral code, this concept of sin, an ideal of love requiring worthiness and commitment.
While completely absent, even horrifying to Lenina.
And Lenina, operating totally within the world state's norms of casual, consequence-free sex, genuinely cannot understand his resistance, his disgust, his Shakespearean framework.
Her interpretation of love is purely physical and immediate. Their inability to communicate, even using the same words like love, it just highlights how deeply conditioning shapes not just behavior, but our very capacity to understand different emotional and moral landscapes.
Yeah, it really shows the psychological impact of both worlds, doesn't it? John's internal conflict is huge instinct versus learned morals.
And Lenina is simply unequipped to handle the intensity of unregulated emotion, whether it's her own brief flashes or John's terrifying outbursts. Her society removed the tools and the understanding needed for experiences like this.
So here's something to think about, maybe. If communication and understanding broke down so completely, so violently between John and Lenina, even though there was that initial attraction, does this suggest that some societal differences create chasms that are just simply too wide to cross?
It's a powerful question raised by this chapter, a really sobering thought.
It really is.
Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to see you when we discuss the next chapter.